Zemba. Are we good?
Yep.
Okay. Welcome to the Northampton County Council meeting, March 18th, 2021. I've asked Mr. Giovanni to do the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
The flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Roll call, please, Ms. Zembo.
Mr. Kuzic,
Present.
Mrs. Ferraro,
Come on.
There she is.
Mr. Giovanni,
Here.
Mr. Heckman,
You.
Here. Here.
Mr. Lott,
Here.
Mr. McGee,
Here.
Mr. Myers,
Here.
Ms. Fargo Hefner,
Here.
Ms. Zirinsky,
Here.
all present.
Thank you. Can we have a motion to approve the minutes of March 4th, 2021?
So to move.
Who moved first?
McGee.
Second, Myers.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, do we have anyone here for courtesy of the floor?
Yes.
Eileen, read the directions, please.
All right, you can raise your hand in the Zoom program, or if you're on the phone, hit *9.
I see we have one person.
Who is that unmasked man? Mr. Irwin, would you like to speak?
Yeah, James Irwin. Have to give my address, Madam Chair.
You could give your town and, yeah, please.
440 Spruce Lane, Lower Nazareth. So I want to take this time as the chairman of the Graysdale Advisory Board and a former longtime employee of Graysdale. I worked there from 1999 to 2013. I thought it would be appropriate for me to come here tonight and respond to Councilman Kusic's question as to why we have not met during the COVID-19 global pandemic. I think first, it is important to remember that the Graysdale Advisory Board was originally suggested and established as a watchdog to ensure that the circumstances that led to the attempt to sell Graysdale to a for-profit corporation would not occur again. Councilman Kusic should be aware of this, as he was one of the members of council at the time that was in favor of the sale of the nursing home to a for-profit corporation, and is the only member left on council that voted that way. It is well known that the county executive and a majority of this county council would not sell Graysdale, nor did I believe anyone would want to buy Graysdale during a once-in-a-century outbreak. So there is no basis to be concerned about that particular purpose of the Graysdale Advisory Board. Second, the Graysdale administration comes here to the County Council's Human Service Committee meetings and delivers the same exact report that you as council members receive. I saw no purpose in forcing an extra meeting on the already overworked staff at Graysdale. Third, as an AFSCME staff representative, I am well aware that the Graysdale administration is in constant contact with my colleague and the local executive board there. We represent the vast majorities of employees there. Many issues are discussed and resolved in these conversations that are superior to the overall working of the home than the receipt of the same report that you would get on a monthly basis at a Graysdale Advisory Board could or would do. Finally, it is my personal and professional opinion that the Graysdale Advisory Board meeting would not have stopped one infection, it would not have prevented one death, but it would have created an extra burden on the Graysdale staff when one more straw could have broken the camel's back. So when things do return to normal, we are looking at meeting again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Irwin. Are there any other members who wish to speak courtesy of the floor? Seeing and hearing none, we'll move forward with the meeting. Thank you. Mr. McClure, do you have a county executive report for us this evening?
Good evening. Council, as you know, our collaborative site with Lehigh Valley Hospital Coordinated Health continues to show a persistent 21, almost 22% positivity rate in Northampton County. With respect to that particular site, that's bad news. On the good news front, Graysdale has 0 infections amongst its residents today. So we're very pleased about that. But we just released a COVID report, a COVID deaths report in the county today. And it's well on its way since the beginning of the year to 200 lost souls. So my point to you tonight, as I begin to unveil the American Rescue Plan in Northampton County, is that we are still in the middle of a pandemic. And as a tremendous Northampton County citizen, Andy Weaver, is constantly reminding us, we need to keep wearing our masks, staying socially distant, keeping our hands clean, and we need to get everybody vaccinated as soon as we possibly can. With that, I want to unveil to you tonight the American Rescue Plan. As you know, Northampton County will be receiving, pursuant to the American Rescue Plan just passed in the United States Congress and signed by President Biden, $60,710,000. Let me repeat, $60,710,000. There will be 2 payments pursuant to the American Rescue Plan. In the first half of 2021, we will receive $30,355,000. In the second half of 2022, Northampton County will receive $30,355,000. This provides us with a remarkable opportunity to continue the fight to crush the pandemic. Council, we've been working together on 2 fronts. We've been providing funding for COVID-19 testing, first at Easton Hospital, now with Coordinated Health. We've also just come off a tremendously successful small business program where we've helped nearly 800 small businesses with approximately $10.7 million survive and thrive. We've thrown them that lifeline. You know, now we're working with the Rising Tide Loan Fund. But with this $60,710,000 budget, we can now reinstitute our small business loan program. There are so many small businesses who haven't been able to participate in our loan program. And this is a grant program. So we will be able to set many millions more dollars aside, Council, for small businesses throughout the county of Northampton. And I can't think of a better way to move forward in trying to crush the pandemic than that. Also, I am working very closely with the Pennsylvania Department of Health and with the Pennsylvania Emergency Management Agency to bring a mass drive-through vaccination site to the park and ride at 33 and 78. This money will allow us to make sure that we have the funding to get a mass site, which can serve up to 6,000 people a day. And let me tell you, I know lots of folks are getting vaccinated, and this is a very good thing, but our area agency on aging is assisting the excellent Bethlehem Health Bureau in making some appointments for vaccinations at Wind Creek. They are giving us 100 slots to fill of Northampton County residents age 60 and over. Last week, the first week we were assisting in this way, we remember AAA is given 100 slots to fill. IT has reported that 3,345 calls were made to AAA last Friday morning with our citizens seeking to get vaccinations. So there is a real need, and the American Rescue Plan will give us the requisite money without having to invade your fund set aside about $17 million for emergencies in order to pay for that. So that's really great news. Additionally, in our first CARES Act plan, remember our pandemic protection plan? We had schools to take care of. We had some of our large bi-county organizations to take care of, and nonprofits really got left out. And so with this new batch of money, we'll be able to help Northampton County and the Lehigh Valley's nonprofits who serve the people of Northampton County. We will also be able to help the city of Easton. Easton has, as you know, been funded in a way that they believe they are underfunded, because the formula from the American Rescue Plan is using population as the determining factor of how much money a particular city gets. And I believe Easton believes they are not getting their fair share, and I agree. Easton's population may not be that of a city anymore, but Easton still has the legacy costs and the burdens of a city, and it is our county seat. And we have an obligation to help Easton as much as we possibly can in that regard. With this money, we can reseed and restart hotel tax grants. As people get vaccinated, there's going to be all kinds of efforts this fall to bring people to Northampton County again, to restart and recharge our ecotourism and to bring folks into our townships and boroughs. We can also continue our Grow Norco. We can have 2 rounds to further help fund our municipalities and others. And finally, we can put more money into the EMS grants. Who needs more money than our local EMS agencies? And we did a great job, Council, in funding those earlier. So there's so much for us to do with the American Rescue Plan. As soon as we have the money in, we'll bring it to you, and we'll begin the important discussions on how we should allocate that. Any questions about that?
Mr. Myers.
Mr. McClure,
Yes.
is there something that you have in store for the city of Easton? Have we had discussions with Mayor Panto and council?
No, we haven't. There was some thought that the home program that we are involved with Easton in, that we get to magnify the community development block grant money we get from HUD because we've joined together, has reduced Easton's American Rescue Plan share, but that's not the case. We've researched that issue. But we're going to make sure that Easton gets its fair share of this money as our county seat, as a city that continues to have the legacy issues it has, it carries the burdens it does. We're a partner with the city of Easton, and we'll make sure that there is a certain and substantial amount of money set aside. Ultimately, you'll decide, but our proposal will be in the millions for you to determine whether Easton should get that or not. We should note, very importantly, when we're talking about Easton, our other municipalities, our townships and boroughs, are also getting money directly. So that's true. And our largest municipality, the city of Bethlehem, is getting $33 million. So there's that too. Any other questions on that?
I have a question, Mr. McClure. Regarding the city of Bethlehem, since it's a bi-county city, how does that money get split between? Like, are they getting some from Lehigh and some from us, or?
You know, they are getting a direct allotment. So that's their allotment. We've gotten our own money, and so is Lehigh.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Ms. Zirinsky.
Can you just clarify, what was the total amount of the pot that we were getting from the American Rescue Plan?
So the American Rescue Plan, $60,710,000. Paid in 2 installments, one in 21, one in 22, $30,355,000 each. there's
Thank you.
no other questions about that, I can move on to my other items.
Wait, Mr. McGee has a question?
I'll wait till after the other items.
Okay, anyone else before he moves on? Mr. McClure?
Yes, there's been some conversation recently about the Graysdale Advisory Board. I thought I heard Mr. Irwin talk about it from his position as the chairman of the Graysdale Advisory Board. I thought I should talk about it from my position as the head of the executive branch in Northampton County. About a year ago, right around when the pandemic broke or before, I was approached by then Deputy Director of Public Works, Scott Parsons, who's also a member of the Friends of Graysdale, a 501c3, also created by County Council, to begin considering the merger of the Friends of Graysdale and the Graysdale Advisory Board. I believe Mr. Parsons would say, and you can ask him when he comes to talk about it, that independent, these two entities were not fully realized when you consider the potentiality they have if you brought them both together. So we have been involved in a year-long dialogue about what that would look like. And frankly, I told Mr. Parsons that I would need to suspend our conversations about the merging of these two entities during the pandemic, because quite frankly, we were busy. And I think we don't need to go through ad nauseum all the things we were doing. I mean, I could talk about how we were the first nursing home to close. I could talk about how we were the first nursing home to create an isolation unit, or the great efforts we had in the remarkable efforts in gathering together all the PPE that we did. I could talk about all those stuff, being one of the first nursing homes in the Commonwealth to be vaccinated, all of these kind of things. But you know, we're going to get to the point where we can start talking here at council about the merger of the Graysdale Advisory Board and the Friends of Graysdale to make it an entity that has the potential to make a difference in a way that the independent entities aren't, because they're not. With respect to the appointments of members, to the reappointments or appointments to the members of Graysdale Advisory, I have sent you nominations today for members of the Graysdale Advisory Board to fill the entire board. We've also, in my final agenda item here tonight, we've been talking about the pressing needs at Graysdale, and one of the things that has come up recently is about all these open positions. Why do you have these 250 open positions, or whatever they are? And it's a great question, and I think it deserves a straightforward answer. And in the near future, we're going to have Graysdale administration come in because they've been busy fighting COVID. They've just now completed their review of the position control at Graysdale. And this year in the budgetary process, you're going to see us be able to eliminate 103 to approximately 130 of those positions that have been carried on the books year after year after year. And frankly, one of the reasons those positions have continued to be carried on the books is because nobody has before done as in an intensive look at position control at Graysdale as our Director of Nursing, Don Twares-Feldman, has done. That's going to allow us to get those between 100 and 130 positions off the books. So then we can concentrating on filling those approximately 124 positions, which, as you know, we've been standing on our heads to do for more than 3 years. So that's where we're at with those positions, and you'll see that they'll come and talk to you about position control, and then you'll see in the budget where we are proposing 100 to 130 less positions in the Graysdale budget. Any questions?
Mr. McGee?
I just have a comment, and that's great to hear all the great things that are happening and the money coming in. My comment just is from yesterday's committee meeting on the TV program that we discussed in length. Actually, after thinking about it, as I said initially, but I think it is a great program after thinking about it and the cost and everything. So it's just a comment. Whoever came up with it, I actually think it was a pretty clever idea. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Lott?
Yeah, since Bill brought up the TVs, I think we got an opinion from our solicitor that it's appropriate, which, surprise, surprise, we never own those TVs. I just think it's wonderful that the residents and their families are willing to say, some of them took them home, I guess, but most of them are saying, you can have them, give them to the staff. So I just think it actually kind of shows that staff has been the family of these residents for the last year and even before that, but really this is their contact. And I just thought it was really nice that the residents and their families have offered it to the staff. It's not, we've never owned those TVs. Those were always the residents' TVs. So it's a really kind gesture to them. I think all we're really doing is saying it's okay for our employees to take this wonderful gesture because we don't want our employees taking just anything from our residents. But in this case, we're saying it's okay. So and on the top of everything else, what we've gone through at Graysdale to give the residents, giving back their employees is kind of unique, but I think it's a wonderful thing. So thank you. And, I appreciate the administration working so hard on Graysdale. And, it's very difficult for a county to run a nursing home, but, and then throw a pandemic on top of it. I just really want to commend the administration on getting through all this. And hopefully we can really build a nice, strong, we will continue to build a nice, strong nursing home up there for our most vulnerable senior citizens. And it's so critical because these private homes don't take a lot of the people we take. And where will they be? I don't want to go down that road. I think we need our Graysdale. And I once again thank the administration for all they do up there. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. McClure. Okay, moving on to old business. Is there any other old business that we have to discuss this evening? Seeing and hearing none, let's move into new business. We have consideration of appointments and reappointments resolution. First for Children, Youth and Families Advisory Board and second Parks, Recreation and Open Space Advisory Board. Mr. Heckman, will you introduce the resolution? Mr. Heckman, will you unmute yourself, please? Nope.
That will be the most popular phrase in 2021.
What, Mr. Heckman, will you unmute yourself?
No, just unmute. Not Mr. Heckman unmute, just unmute.
Aileen, he's talking and can,
No, I'm trying to get things back, okay?
there you go.
All right, yeah, things were starting to come apart at the seams. All right, full screen, that's what I want. It went away. All right, there we are. Yeah, as long as we're thanking everybody for their wonderfulness, I want to thank all the volunteers who come forward, give their own time and don't expect anything in return. And we don't always praise them, but I'd like to thank these people that serve on these boards. I mean, to me, citizen boards are critical to keep an eye on all of us. And these people do a great job, particularly in the area of human services. So with that, let me just say, resolved by the Northampton County Council that the following individuals shall be confirmed in their reappointments as indicated hereafter. Children, Youth, and Families Advisory Board appointment, Christina Lincoln, Easton, PA, term to expire 3/22/23. Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Advisory Board, reappointments. Victoria Bastidas, Bethlehem, PA. Claire Sadler, Bethlehem, PA. And Michael Topping, Bethlehem, PA. Their terms to all expire 3/19/23, and that's the resolution.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on this resolution? Ms. Zembo, will you call for the vote?
Mr. Heckman,
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni,
Yes.
Mr. Lot,
Yes.
Mr. McGee,
Yes.
Mr. Myers,
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner,
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky,
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic,
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro.
yes,
Adopted by a vote of 9-0.
Thank you. Next, we have the consideration of a substantial amendment to the fiscal year 2019 annual action plan and fiscal year 2019 to 2023 5-year consolidated plan resolution. Mr. Lot, will you please introduce this?
Okay. It's a very long resolution. Just hit the therefores.
Sure.
Now therefore be resolved by the Council of Northampton County. Number one, that the substantial amendment of the fiscal year 2019 annual action plan is hereby approved. Two, that the substantial amendment of the fiscal year 2019, 2023 5-year consolidated plan to include ESG funding for activities to address the county's housing, communities, and economic development priorities needs is hereby approved. Number three, that the county is co-diligent in the conditions that are imposed in the undertaking and carrying out of housing and community development activities with the federal financial assistance. Number four, that the county executive is authorized to execute and file the financial assistance applications with HUD, which has indicated its willingness to make available funds to carry out the CDBG/CV3 program in the amount of $1,355,847 and is further authorized to act as an authorized representation of Northampton County to sign any and all documents in regard to these programs. And number five, that the county executive and the DCED is hereby authorized to provide assurance or certification as required by HUD and also provide any additional documents that may be requested. So introduced.
Thank you, Mr. Lot. Is there any discussion about this resolution? Seeing and hearing none, can we call for the vote?
Mr. Lot,
Yes.
Mr. Heckman,
Yes.
Mr. McGee,
Yes.
Mr. Myers,
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner,
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky,
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic,
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro,
yes,
Mr. Giovanni.
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 9-0.
Thank you. Next, we have the consideration of a donation to Graysdale staff resolution. Mr. Heckman, will you please introduce this?
Oh, me? All right.
Yes,
hold
you.
on. All right, I didn't know I was doing this one. All right, here we are. Let me just see. I had somebody hum a song or something while I'm getting this. All right, I think I have this. Okay, here we go. Do you want me to read the whole thing or just the therefore?
Dealer's choice. Go ahead.
You have a choice. All right, I go through it quick. Whereas Northampton County Home Rule Charter, Section 202 provides that the county council shall have, among others, the following powers: to accept on behalf of the county any gifts of real property and to provide for the acceptance by any agency on behalf of the county of other gifts. And whereas the residents at Graysdale received new televisions and would like to donate their old televisions to the staff at Graysdale, The staff at Graysdale would be given a chance to select a television on a first come, first served basis, and any televisions not claimed would be donated to another facility. Now, therefore, be it resolved by Northampton County Council that it does hereby authorize the staff at Graysdale be allowed to receive as a gift from the residents televisions on a first come, first served basis, with any remaining television being donated to another facility. There you go.
Thank you. Do we have any further discussion on this resolution? Yes, Mr. Heckman.
Well, since I was asked to introduce it, let me just say, first and foremost, I am very glad that the residents have new TVs provided by the county. In the past, I didn't even know this, and that's why when this came up, I had some questions. I didn't realize we had done that, and I think it's great. It used to be where families would buy them, and that's what we're talking about here. And you ended up with a variety of TVs here, there, and everywhere. And I think it actually works to the staffing and the nature. Other homes have done this. So I'm very pleased that we are now at consistent basis. All residents have access to TVs as part of Graysdale's service to them. That I applaud 100%. And as to any questions that came up about this, it's sort of the nature of what we do on council. It's not really about, is this a wonderful gesture or not? I think it's a great gesture. It's just a matter of legality. Part of what we do on council, and you've heard that in the first paragraph, it's the power of council. And it's important for us to know when we don't, however something like this functions, that we're on solid footing. And that's why we have a solicitor, and he's to look at it on our behalf and say that, okay, maybe you have to change this word, or you have to do it this way. So now that it's passed all the legal hoops, I never had a problem with this. My understanding is it's fine the way it's put together, and I would hope people would support this. I'd be shocked if it's not approved unanimously. And that's all I wanted to point out.
Thank you, Mr. Heckman. Any other comments or questions or discussion? Mr. McGee.
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Heckman. It's good that we took the time to understand it and make sure. But at the end of the day, I mean, it sounds to me after the solicitor's comments that they hit the nail on the head with the resolution. It's ready. It's good to go. Thank you.
Anyone else? Let's call for the vote.
Mr. Heckman,
Yes.
Mr. Lott,
Yes.
Mr. McGee,
Yes.
Mr. Myers,
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner,
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky,
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic,
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro,
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni.
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 9-0.
Thank you. Next, we have the consideration of an Article 13 contract, Nyleave Bridge Corps Resolution. Mr. McGee, will you please introduce this?
Thank you. Whereas Northampton County Administrative Code, Article 13, Procurement and Disposition of County Property, Section 1315, Contracts and Agreements, C2 requires approval of County Council for any contracts where costs are to be funded with monies outside of the county's general fund, such as those funded through bonded indebtedness. Whereas on March 5th, 2021, the Northampton County Council received a request from the county executive for County Council to adopt a resolution endorsing a contract in the amount of $498,020 for Nyleave Bridge Corporation for replacement Bridge 225 located at Upper Mount Bethel on Laurel Hill Road. Now, therefore, it be resolved that the Northampton County Council does hereby concur with the recommendations of the county executive as set forth in the attached documents to approve a contract with Nyleave Bridge Corporation for replacement of Bridge 225. This was discussed last night and so moved.
Thank you, Mr. McGee. Any questions or discussion on this matter? Seeing and hearing none, let's call for the vote.
Mr. McGee,
Yes.
Mr. Myers,
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner,
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky,
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic,
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro,
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni,
Yes.
Mr. Heckman,
Yes.
Mr. Lot.
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 9-0.
Thank you. Next, we have the consideration of an elections process resolution. Both Ms. Zirinsky and Mr. Myers collaborated on this. Ms. Zirinsky, will you please introduce the resolution? Got a little tongue-tied there, sorry.
It's okay. Now it is therefore resolved that Northampton County calls upon the General Assembly and the state administration for the above captioned recommendations to be enacted to improve stewardship of taxpayer dollars, reduce costs, increase local flexibility, and assure the quality of services counties provide in the election process. It is further resolved that Northampton County Council supports the Pennsylvania Supreme Court's extension of the deadline for accepting mail-in ballots, allowing voters to submit their ballots through drop boxes, and all decisions, procedures, and laws which result in the enfranchisement of voters.
This was discussed at the Governance Committee, but do we have any further discussion on this resolution? Ms. Ferraro?
I just have trouble supporting all of this relaxation of voting laws, pandemic driven. And I think there's a lot of good here too. But when are we going to have voter ID, some tightening up of some of these things? For too long now, voter ID has been kicked around. Everywhere you go, you have to show your identification, except for a very important thing that determines the outlook of our country's leadership. And there we don't have any voter ID. Now we're letting people register the same day and vote. It's just getting so even more relaxed, and yet still ID is a bad word. So until that is done, I in good conscience just don't go along with any of this. Thank you.
Mr. Giovanni, did you have your hand raised?
No, I did not.
Thank you. Mr. Myers?
I just want to chime in. I hear what Peck's saying, but I believe that everyone should have the right to vote. And if you're 90 years old and you have no way of getting an identification, are we going to take that 90-year-old and say, yeah, you can't vote, even though you served our country or whatever you have to do? I don't want to strip anybody of their right to vote. And I'm saying that personally, I think it's, it's an attack by, I hear what you're saying, but, every person has a right to vote. Let's not turn back the clock 50 years, because if we turn it back 50 years, I wasn't allowed to vote. Thank you.
Ms. Ferraro?
I'm mute.
Okay, Carrie, no, there's no way, you know me better than that. I mean, there's no way in the world that I would ever want to take away anyone's voting privileges. I mean, 90 years old, whatever they are, I still think we need to have some kind of just a little bit of tightening with all of this. We have to do it for everything else that's important. Why not voting? So there's other ways they can have identification. There's, we don't have to be horrible about this, but we can certainly have some safeguards built in. Thank you.
Anyone else? Let's call for the vote.
Ms. Zirinsky,
Yes.
Mr. Myers,
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner,
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic,
No.
Mrs. Ferraro,
No.
Mr. Giovanni,
No.
Mr. Heckman,
Yes.
Mr. Lot,
Yes.
Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 6-3.
Thank you. Next, we have the consideration of equal rights constitutional amendment resolution. Mr. Myers, will you please introduce this?
I most certainly will. Whereas Northampton County Council supports all decisions, procedures, laws, infringements, voters including but not limited to the utilization of drop boxes. Now, it therefore be resolved that Northampton County calls upon the General Assembly, the State Administrator, for the above captions recommendations to be enacted to improve stewardship and taxpayers' dollars, reduce costs, increase local flexibility, ensure quality in the service county provided into the election process. It is.
You're reading the wrong one.
Can you hear me? It is further
can.
resolved that Northampton County Council supports the Pennsylvania Supreme Court's extension of this.
You're reading the wrong one, Carrie.
That's what we just
You're reading
voted
the
on,
one we just passed.
Is that the one I just read?
Yes, it is.
Thank
Okay,
you,
It's the
sorry.
wrong one. That's okay.
I had a senior moment.
It's all right.
Which one am I reading? The second one?
Whereas a ballot question.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Now therefore it be resolved that Northampton County is to support the Pennsylvania Constitution being amended by adding a new section providing the equality of rights under the law shall be not denied or abridged because individuals' race or ethnicity.
Any discussion on this resolution? Mr. Heckman?
Yeah, I just want to say I'm going to support this. I mean, I can't see how I can't. This is, I would like to just broach this because to me, this goes hand in hand with the last resolution. I don't think anybody sitting here of the 9 is overtly would ever do anything to try and stop anybody from voting. I've had a great deal of experience in local government and dealing with a group of people and different people. And I've met some people who we didn't always agree or get along necessarily that well, but I never really ran into that. Now, that does not say that I disagree with the premise that there is institutional racism and you know, there certainly is. I've learned that as I've gone through life. That being said, I think oftentimes what we're trying to do at a local level, we accomplish a great deal because we talk to each other, we work together, we have a lot of public input. I understand the concerns about voter security, and I guess it's been brought up. One of the problems we often get is that federal or state officials dump stuff on our laps. I mean, we're responsible for the elections. And I'm hoping that somewhere down the road, I agree with Carrie, I don't think anything should be done where somebody, because they didn't get a specific kind of paper or card, will be denied voting. Nothing should be put in the way of somebody voting. But hopefully the feds and the state, probably more the state than the feds, we can work out something where there's some kind of everyone feels comfortable with security, because it's been used as a wedge to drive us apart, a false narrative. We've had it thrown at us. And it's going to be, it's going to continue to be out there, despite who gets elected president. I don't think there's anything to the idea that there's massive fraud. I think we've had secretaries of states from Republican states, Democratic states say we have no fraud that would determine an election. Let's put it that way. But I do think that we will continue to have concerns until we always talk about telling our state and federal representatives, they got to get off their duffs. I mean, they spend so much time arguing with each other, trying to get who gets the pop on CNN or Fox, that they got to sit down and actually do some work to solve some of these problems. And I think there is a resolution. I think there's a resolution somewhere down the road where there will be to satisfy most people, not all, never all, most people, regardless of their political beliefs, because we have to have faith in our electoral process. And we can't deny anyone who has a right to vote their right to vote. But I don't know. I opined. I've been good. I've been quiet for most of the night, but I just had to opine on that. So I support this, and hopefully it'll be something that's carried into the federal and state levels. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Heckman. Any other discussion? Ms. Zirinsky?
I have a question. This this amendment, or this question, when you look at the actual joint resolution, there's a part in that joint resolution where it says every order, resolution, or vote to which the occurrence of both houses may be necessary, except on the question of adjournment. Questions of adjournment or termination or extension of a disaster emergency declaration as declared by an executive order or proclamation, or portion of a disaster emergency declaration as declared by an executive order or proclamation shall be presented by the governor, and before it shall take effect by approved by him or being disproved, shall be repassed by 2/3 of both houses according to the rules and limitations prescribed. So we're voting in favor of a resolution that would allow the state house power over the governor to be able to extend a disaster emergency. Is that correct?
That was not my plan when I did
No,
this.
it's not your plan, but it's the unintended consequences when we put something really good into something else. Do you see what I'm saying? Like,
This issue with it, it's on the ballot now with that. Now,
right. So we know how they,
separated beats the is the issue. Mr. Spadoni.
it's not a separate issue. It is how the ballot question has been worded that would lead you to believe that if you are not in favor of the prohibition against denial and abridgment of equality of rights because of race and ethnicity, that you are also in favor of allowing the General Assembly 2/3 vote against any disaster relief that would, any what is it called? Executive order or proclamation declaring disaster emergency.
Where's Chris to chime in on this?
I think the best thing to do at this point is they got me a little flat-footed, and I see that Mr. Cusick would like to speak. Maybe I should speak after he does.
I would like to speak after John.
I didn't know we were taking the numbers, but okay, Mr. Cusick.
Madam
and
President,
we'll
I'm
go from
sorry
there.
for upsetting the apple cart.
Thank you. I could,
It's my understanding that these are in fact two separate and distinct ballot questions. I don't believe that this is one question. My understanding is that these are two separate amendments that are addressed by two separate questions. And with regards to the one that Mr. Myers has brought to our attention, I was shocked to see that it wasn't in the Constitution already. Certainly that belongs there. I support it. And, I also think that this was an opportunity to include the Bostock decision as well, but maybe
But they didn't do that
something
either.
for another time. But I support it. And as far as the other one, I think that's a separate issue.
Mr. Heckman.
Yeah, well, I guess I'm somewhat echoing what Mr. Cusick said to a degree, because, and my understanding was, I thought, as far as the part that Ms. Zirinsky brought up, they were trying to clarify the legislative power vis-a-vis the executive. And I think that 3/4, they're saying an executive can declare this, an executive can declare that, but we can change that if we can get 3/4 of the House to override it. I mean, to me, that was a separate issue, and I think it's a fight between executive branch power, legislative branch, and I think we're seeing that in Pennsylvania as well as other states. I've always been a legislative branch guy myself, because I think as time has gone on, it's been harder and harder for legislatures to hold on. So the thing is, I didn't have a problem with that, but I didn't think we were voting on that. I thought this was a separate issue, which I have to say, I'm surprised as well that this wasn't in our state constitution. But if it's a ballot question, isn't this a lot like when we put the LGBTQ thing on and we said nobody should be allowed to vote on whether LGBTQ rights are there? Yet there's a question going out saying the voters have the right to say whether or not all people should have the same rights when it comes to voting. I was surprised this wasn't in, and I guess they have to do it the same process we do and go to the ballot box to change the state constitution. So I'm in favor of it, but the entire thing, what was the term used earlier, meeting? Mystified. I'm mystified by some of the mechanics of this. So I mean, that's my understanding, and I'll be happy to be convinced otherwise, but I thought it was two separate issues.
I would like to just make a point of clarification. In the second paragraph, it states, whereas joint resolution number 2021-1, ballot question number 3, if approved, will add a new section to Article 1 of the Pennsylvania Constitution. Mr. Zoning.
Let me just say that when I crafted this after discussions with the council people, our crack staff, the clerk and the assistant clerk brought that to my attention, and I amended that. And I tried to address that in that whereas, and that was largely done as a result of their wordsmithing. And I appreciate them reviewing it that closely, that I tried to get to dissipate that concern.
So back to what Ms. Zirinsky asked, is this unintentionally going to, if we vote for this, which we're working on equity and equal rights, are we going to unintentionally approve something that we may not be in favor of, Mr. Spadoni?
My answer would be no.
Mr. McGee?
I don't agree with that analysis, but you could have an argument in that regard.
I'm not a lawyer. I'm asking your opinion. Mr. McGee?
Just a question. Is there a time frame that we have to get this done? Could we take a 2-week and do some research, get it right?
I have to defer to Mr. Myers.
I do not have a problem with that. I was under the same impression that Chris had, that it would not affect have an effect agreeing with the 2/3 votes by the legislature. This was just something that was not in our constitution. And I wanted to make sure that we got it out, that, you know, we get this in our constitution. But if we want to table this and do some more research, I don't have a problem with that. Mr. Spadoni, can we do any further research to make sure this thing is solid?
Certainly, I'll meet with both you and Councilwoman Zirinsky and try to work our way through this. It sounds like a good plan.
I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Ms. Zirinsky, you had your, Ron, I could see you, but there's a line. Thank you. Ms. Zirinsky, did you
Yeah, I
have
just
your
had
hand?
my hand up because I went to the Department of State website, and I mean, you could see what the ballot questions say, and it is there is a separate ballot question about extended disaster emergency declarations, but that gives the legislature that separate question limits the declaration to 21 days.
Right.
So I think that there is a lot of confusion on what these 3 ballot questions actually entail, and the entire joint resolution for number 2021-1 actually does contain these 3 items, but where it says prohibition against the denial of abridgment and equality of rights because of race and ethnicity, it has right under that this portion about the disaster emergency declaration needing a 2/3 vote. So it leads me to believe that maybe these are connected. So I would definitely appreciate further clarification, and I would like to make a motion to table this.
There's been a motion to table. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you.
Okay, so motion has been tabled. There will be no further discussion.
You have to vote.
Thank you. Ms. Zembo?
Ms. Zirinsky,
Yes.
Mr. Myers,
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic,
No.
Mrs. Ferraro,
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni,
Yes.
Mr. Heckman,
Abstain for lack of discussion.
Mr. Lot,
Yes.
Mr. McGee,
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Passes by a vote of 8-1 with 1 abstention.
Thank you. Okay. Let's see where we're at. Is there any other new business to discuss this evening? All right, seeing none, are there any council committee reports? Mr. Myers?
Yes, I don't know if everyone was aware of it. We had an answer to a question that council had asked when we had courts and corrections about the situation with our magistrate. Did everybody get that email from Mr. Jermaine Green?
Are you referring to Judge Corey's decision on the matter?
That is what I'm referring to. If everyone got that, I hope that meets everybody's satisfaction. I think it's crystal clear that the judge agreed that they weren't doing the right thing. And that's my report on that.
Thank you. Any other committee reports? Mr. Heckman?
We had a personnel meeting yesterday, the fruits of which you voted on tonight. That's it.
Anyone else? Mr. McGee?
Finance met yesterday. We had a nice long discussion about the TVs, which was very informative. And we also discussed the bridge project that we approved tonight. Thank you.
And we had a governance committee meeting this evening before this meeting where we discussed the election resolutions. And Ms. Zirinsky?
Prior to this meeting, we had an Energy, Environment, and Land Use Committee meeting. We had Pat McInerney give a presentation on behalf of the Martin Jacoby Watershed Association, as well as Boozy Unisem, and that presentation was given by Radislav, Dan Nugent, and Tom Gillespie. We also talked a little bit about the Penny's Pipeline and the Supreme Court case that will be heard on Wednesday, April 28th of the ruling again between Penny's Pipeline and the state of New Jersey, Third Circuit Court.
Mr. Myers?
One other thing, everybody saw the invite for the opening of that mental health center with Shiloh. I believe it's Wednesday.
No.
Anything am I wrong with that?
That I did not see.
Yeah, the dedication, I believe, is Wednesday. Check your emails, folks.
Would you make sure that Ms. Shafnisky and Ms. Zembo have it to send to everybody, just in
I
case?
thought that was sent to everybody because it came in my emails.
All right, I'll double check. I might have missed it. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay.
Any council liaison reports? Mr. Cusick?
Yeah, the CCAP board met earlier this week. Just a reminder that the virtual spring conference is next week. For those of you that are interested, it's free if you want to sign up. And as far as the summer conference goes, as of now, no decision has been made. The sense is that given the current restrictions, it would be unlikely that it would be held, but we're hopeful that as more people get vaccinated, that there's an opportunity to hold the summer conference at the Hershey Lodge in person. A decision should be made sometime in early May with that regard. Thank you.
Are there dates, Mr. Cusick? Potential dates?
Yeah, well, Monday and Tuesday is the virtual spring conference. and
No,
then-
I'm talking about summer. Thank you.
Yeah, it's second week of August. I got my calendar out right here.
Wow.
So it would be starting August 8th to 11th would be the date. Again, it's depends upon the loosening of restrictions, because right now, under the current restrictions that are in place, the capacity would be limited to, I think somebody said 50 attendees. So it's not workable. So we'll hopefully have clarification in early May.
Thank you. Any other liaison reports? Mr. McGee?
Yep. Planning Commission, they have a workshop coming up on housing. The workshop is the housing shall be advisory to the Lehigh Valley Planning Commission on all housing and housing related issues, studies and projects necessary to achieve the housing policies outlined for future LV, the regional plan. Anticipated workshop results include data reports, technical studies, guidance documents, actionable policies, and regional plans to help diversify and improve access to housing for current and future residents. The purpose is to improve accessibility to attainable housing by diversifying the type, location, cost, and other metrics of housing to meet the social, economic, and future needs of the Lehigh Valley. And it is Thursday, April 15th at 3 p.m. And you can sign up for it at LVPC. And that's really all I have for tonight on that. Thank you.
Thank you. I have one. I attended the Discover Lehigh Valley meeting. It was my first time. It was the financial meeting. So they went over all the general reports. Obviously, travel and tourism was greatly impacted last year, and they spoke about efforts to market, as well as there was a presentation by LVIA to encourage people to fly from our airport whenever possible. And I think outlook is a little more optimistic for this year in terms of people returning to some of the hotels, especially it seems like Lehigh Valley is one of the third most marketed or traveled area in the state. And so people are looking here to come for conferences and other kind of business meetings. I think that's the next niche other than just family tourism. So as I get more acclimated to it, I'll share more. Thank you. Any other liaison reports?
Lori, I sent that to you.
Thank you, Carrie. Mr. McGee?
Yeah, I apologize. I missed one more piece here. They also have, which is pretty interesting, actually. They did a U.S. Census Bureau in the Lehigh Valley, and they looked at the housing, and they put a pretty nice report together. And just a couple points. In their report, it talks about a shortage of 14,480 housing units of $24,000 a year and less. And then they talked about a stockpile of 49,000 housing units for incomes of 25,000 to 99,000. And then so it's pretty interesting. If you get a chance, you should take a look at it. There's a lot of data in there to unpack. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more? Council Clerk's report. Council Solicitor's report.
Nothing.
Okay, I have one announcement. We are returning to in-person meetings effective April 1st. I have talked to everybody. It seems like most of us have had our vaccines and will be able to return. We've moved a little bit of the seating around, but I think we will be able to be safe. We also did check into the idea of can we have Zoom and the answer is unfortunately no. Mr. Giovanni could speak more to the technical aspects of that, but I think it's got to be one or the other. So we'll probably be returning to the phone system.
That is correct, Lori. The feedback is between the microphones will be too much, be Zoom and live. So I think it'll be the phone.
Okay. And we will do this and we will test it out. And as long as the numbers remain in the decline and there are no upticks or no other risks that increase, we will try to go and stay live. So we will start in 2 weeks. Anything else for the good of the order? Can I have a motion to adjourn, please?
Second.
Mr. Giovanni and Tara Zirinsky second. All in favor?
Aye.
See you in